Welcome to the Optimal Bio podcast. At Optimal Bio, we don't just balance your hormones, we balance your whole body. Our conversations range from nutrition to medicine with an emphasis on wellness tips to support your health journey. If you like what you hear, find us on the web at optimalbio.com and follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Optimal Bio podcast. Today, we want to introduce you to Tanya Nix, a provider out of our Greenville, South Carolina office. Tanya, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
How is everything going today?
It's going well. Nice day, ready for cooler weather.
As always, I appreciate your time. I know you have a busy schedule today, so we'll get right to it. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from, and how you got interested in medicine.
So I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama, and I've lived there pretty much all my life. I knew I would eventually end up in North Carolina or South Carolina. I've always liked the Carolinas, and moved to Greenville probably a year ago. Prior to that, I grew up in a small town outside of Birmingham on a farm. I went to nursing school at UAB, or University of Alabama in Birmingham. I did my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate there at the nursing school. And I have two daughters. I have a 21-year-old that is a senior at Clemson, and I have a 19-year-old that is a sophomore at Texas Christian. And a dog, Natalie.
I kind of knew you had a love for animals because some of our meetings you talk about your dog. So how many animals? How big was the farm?
It was a small farm, but it was great because, we always grew up with horses. My dad always had Tennessee Walkers, pigs, chickens, goats, mini dogs. I would always bring stray dogs home, ducks, you name it. We had it.
It sounded like it'd be a kind of a fun place to grow up as a kid.
It was great. Yeah.
So at that time, I think you told me before that you might have been interested in going to veterinary school, and then you went into nursing. But what was the change? Why did you decide not to become a vet?
Probably, which it sounds funny to say this now, as much schooling as I've done. But when I initially checked into being a veterinarian, I was like, I don't want to go to school that long. So that's when I kind of looked into nursing more. My grandfather and I were very close, went fishing together all the time. He was always at our house. And so I helped care for him when he was sick. So I have a passion for geriatrics because of him and kind of caring for the geriatric population.
And what'd you get your PhD in?
It was in nursing. It was actually my doctorate, which is more of the clinical side versus the research side, even though you do have research in both. But so it was still in nursing.
Was it a cool topic that you did your thesis on, or was it something that, like someone like me who's not too technical, would not be too interested in?
So our group was, there was 4 of us in a group, and it was in geriatrics. We kind of formed our group because everybody kind of had a passion for the older population, and it was on dementia. And so in the hospital, readmission rates, Medicare, if you're readmitted within 30 days, typically will not pay for that readmission rate. So a lot of the patients with dementia are usually admitted more with a primary diagnosis like falls or a UTI or whatever, and it's not the dementia part. So we developed kind of like an alert if their primary care doctor was in the UAB system, and if and the alert attached any patient that had a secondary diagnosis of dementia, so that they could get them into the clinic within a week and kind of look at their meds and kind of monitor them more closely over the next 30 days to kind of help prevent that readmission.
Yeah, it's interesting. My grandmother, I was her caregiver for her last 5 or 6 years of life. And then my in-laws went through the same process. And it seems that when you're in a nursing home or an assisted living facility, the patient doesn't want to go to the hospital. The hospital doesn't want the patients to come. They usually treat them and ship them right out, that day. Yet the assisted living and the nursing facilities all seem to just dial 911 the minute something goes a little bit off that they can't treat. And I don't know if you found that doing your thesis, and I was kind of hoping that at some point in time there's a solution to that, because it doesn't seem like it's a win for anybody.
Yeah, so I did geriatrics for about 5 years in the nursing home setting. And the nurse practitioners mainly did the acute visits to try to prevent that readmission to the hospitals. And it did decrease patients going back to the hospital some, but not a huge difference. But you did see that a lot. And it's very stressful in the family, as you experienced, because, grandma's back in the hospital, and then you have to, you're hoping she still has a bed when she gets discharged at the same place and all that.
Yeah, it's frustrating because it's, like you said, it's stressful, and you know how it's going to end. No one wants the patient, so eventually the patient comes back, and the family's kind of stuck in the middle. But anyhow, we're digressing a little bit. But I was just it's always been a hot topic of mine. So you're going through, you have your degrees, and you're obviously not a nurse at this point in time. So what track did you decide to take that moved you out of nursing?
So I worked in burns and trauma for about 3 years in the ICU. And then I transitioned over to the medical ICU, and I worked there for about 8 years and was a charge nurse there. And I knew I didn't want to do bedside the rest of my life. The burnout is so high, and I didn't want to do floor nursing. And I'm kind of older than everybody in the group. So it was kind of when the nurse practitioner program was just being introduced. I graduated from the MP program in 98. I just like the whole, you're always, as a nurse, having to think and do critical thinking, but just the whole autonomy and the independent of caring for someone and kind of managing their care was appealing to me. And so when I finished the program, that's when I went into geriatrics.
And that then takes you out of the ICU, the hospital setting per se, and are you more in a general practice at that point in time, or are you in an assisted living facility?
I worked for a company that managed long-term care facilities, so I traveled to different nursing homes every day and did their new admissions, their discharges, their acute visits to kind of prevent them from being readmitted to the hospital. And then I did that, more of the primary care part in the nursing home, and then did the focus more on the GI issues or the urinary urology issues. With the elderly population, UTIs are high, so it's like putting pessaries in, and these patients can have constipation issues. I know this isn't a real glamorous topic, but it was just more focusing on that type stuff. And I did that for about 5 years, and then went back. I kind of did that part-time when my kids were little, and went back into more of the ambulatory setting in the hospital after my youngest started school. And from there, I worked ortho trauma for about 8 years.
So you have a lot of experience doing a lot of different things. And how eventually did you get into the bioidentical hormone world?
So I've always been interested in health and just natural, stuff. My high school friends in college made fun of me all the time because they'd come to my house and I had to have egg whites on my face or eggs in my hair. Yes, I was always kind of interested in stuff like that, but I think at the time it was more to save money than me being holistic. And in Alabama, nurses are limited than most other states with what they can and can't do. There were a lot of functional medicine and hormone replacement, bioidentical hormone replacement clinics opening up, but nurse practitioners could not do the pellet placements and so forth. And like I said, I wanted to move to North Carolina or South Carolina area when my youngest graduated high school. So my daughters, when they were still in high school, because I was, pretty much very involved with them, they were like, "So Mom, what are you going to do when Reagan graduates and you're empty nesting?" And I was like, I hadn't really thought about it. So I wrote a list of what I like and don't like in medicine. And I wanted to do something more holistic, or part of my project when I was doing my doctorate was in human trafficking. I was real involved in organizations there. And I wanted to do kind of medical mission type work. So I'm kind of bouncing around, but I was kind of torn between doing holistic medicine versus teaching at the nursing school where I went. They have a global nursing department. And that was part of what prompted me getting my doctorate. So I could work there and travel to the clinics in different countries that they kind of help manage. But when COVID hit, they stopped doing the trips and they started hiring. So that's when I kind of focused more on holistic part of medicine or wellness part of medicine. And there were several jobs that came up on like Indeed, and Optimal Bio kind of popped up. And I went to their website, watched the podcast, read Dr. Brannon's book, and I was impressed with, I guess, the process and the education that the company provided, and I guess the training as well, since I'm now part of the company. But that's kind of how I found Optimal Bio.
Got it. And I know you were interested in holistic medicine and what have you. Did you know a lot about bioidentical hormones, or is that something you've picked up in the last couple of years or so?
I did pellets. So just like we hear a lot with the history of some of our female patients, after I had my youngest daughter, like it's, my hormones were just crazy. And I was put on antidepressants, the birth control. I didn't like the side effects of those and the weight gain and so forth. And I met one of the physicians at a meeting that I had to go to at the hospital, and she introduced herself and she told me about the pellets. So I did it for about a year and enjoyed it, but my life was so crazy, honestly, that I didn't know as much as I do now to have continued to do it. So I did it for a year, so I was familiar with it, but not like I have in the last couple of years.
So you're obviously in the system, you're provide care, you've done a lot of research, and, post your second kid, I assume the OBGYN prescribed what they prescribed to you. And are you at the time questioning that, or are you thinking, oh, this is just standard of care and I'll feel better after that?
I trusted it because I was, my GYN delivered both my kids. So we built a friendship over the next, 15, 16 years. And I did trust, I trusted him. Not that I don't now, but, when I did, like I said, take the birth control pills or the antidepressants, I didn't like the way I felt on those. Like, I had no emotions. I felt like I could sleep all the time and gain weight, which no girl likes that. So then I just kind of tried to manage it on my own.
Yeah, it's So when you have patients come to you now, and there might be some experiencing some different things, do you find that some of your patients are conflicting with what Optimal Bio or you might be suggesting that they do in this case, let's say pellets, compared to what a traditional OBGYN might be telling them?
I feel like it's more challenging with the younger generation than the older, because I feel like, the women that are coming in my age, they've kind of gone through the process, like I just explained that I went through. And so I think it's more of a challenge just with the younger females, just teaching them about it, and educating them about the benefits and so forth. I've
found just when I started getting treatment, I guess 4 or 5 years ago now, my GP was a little bit, they weren't saying don't do it, but they were like, there's no need, you're fine. And then one of this other doctor friend of mine that I knew, I just asked him, I said, if my testosterone levels were at 1,000 at my age at this point in time, would I be at a health risk? And he's like, no, not at all. So, so that to me basically was the green light, to go forward. But if I never had spoken to him, I might have been, I guess, more reluctant to do the hormones.
And I guess what I've found amazing too is, just the whole lab range, as we know, has broadened over the years. So, just being told that you're normal, because it is in that normal range, when you don't feel normal, it's just, and I didn't really understand that. I trusted the lab ranges, because you're told, oh, well, everything's in range. So, and then you look for, okay, well, what else could it be? I guess that's the frustrating part of it for some, until they come and kind of hear our explanation of that in the labs.
So tell us about the Greenville location and you as a provider. What is your secret sauce? What everybody has a gift, no matter who they are, and they have the gifts as it relates to their employment. They have gifts in their personal life and what have you. So, if I'm a new patient coming in, and you have to describe, the location, the office, and then the experience I'm going to experience when I come in, what would that be?
It's very welcoming. Everybody's very friendly. I like to hear everybody's story, and I like to educate. And I feel like I'm a good listener. And I'm interested in all my patients, of course, but some of these young kids that come in, I guess I have a little bit more passion for them, because I think these young generations have it so hard. And I just see my kids, my young girls, my daughters struggle. So I just think when you bring somebody in, just making them feel like they're being listened to and validated for their symptoms. And it's not just a number that you see on the lab. You just kind of take everything into consideration. But I do think these patients that come in, they do want to be listened, because a lot of times they'll go, I just feel like he wasn't listening to me. And he was just like, everything's normal. And you leave feeling crazy. And it is very rewarding when they have like their first placement and you talk to them on the phone. We're like, hey, how are you doing? And they're like, oh my God, this is life-changing. It's very rewarding to see the results.
So you're one of the few that I've spoken with that talks about or mentions the challenges of the younger generation. Let's explore that for a little bit. What do you mean by that?
Just the pressure that they have, the social media, and I'm going to use my daughters as an example. It just seems like even in high school, these kids are pressured, like you've always got to be doing something. I don't think they're allowed to rest. And, you're not allowed to rest. There's always, they feel like they're being compared to someone else. And then in high school, I think, because they've grown up with these kids, right? And then when they go to college, there's the little fish in the big pond. They're having to try to find their way. And that's just life anyway. But, and just seeing some of these young kids that come in with the hormone imbalances, it just seems like it's, maybe I didn't hear about it as much because I did mostly geriatrics, but I didn't realize that hormone imbalances were as I guess as big as it is until, I've started seeing them here. It's just a lot of pressure. It's like I had a young kid come in this week and had been, admitted for depression. And he talked to me about the social media stuff and how it's addicting. You can't put it down, but you're happy when you don't have to look at it. It's just, if that makes sense, it's just, society that they have, the pressures that they have. I feel bad for them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have kids that are a little bit older. They're in their 20s and early 30s. And, now that they're older, they're more mature about it, but they do their digital detoxes, where they, won't go on social media. They'll check their phone for work-related issues, email, text, what have you. But, for the most part, they're not on the phone. And they've admitted, after a week of doing it, they are much happier. And I remember recently my brother's daughter, so my niece, she's a sophomore in high school, and she got herself into some minor trouble over the summer, and they took her phone away. And, it was a trauma at first, but I guess they gave it back to her 10 days later. And my brother said, it's unbelievable how happy she was for 10 days. She just read books, she, swam, she went to the pool, she, hung out, but she wasn't on this phone. And, he said to her afterwards, he's like, hey, yeah, I know this was supposed to be a punishment for you, but, how'd you feel about it? And she goes, Dad, I felt really great about it. I gotta put the phone down more often. And, it seems that it's, as you say, it's addictive. And, but it's also, I guess the question I have is, and I never asked anybody this before, and I will going forward, a young person, is if you go on a digital detox for a week, are you, are there things going on behind the scenes that you don't know about that you're being shamed for? And then when you get back on, are you hit with a barrage of stuff, or is it just business as usual again? That's one of the things, I've always wondered about. If you're going to take this time off, is it going to be worse, when you get back, or is it going to be actually better?
Yeah. I can remember my daughter's going away to camp for 2 weeks, and, you can't use your phones, you can't do any electronics, and they were just kind of out in the wilderness. And as soon as I picked them up, I was like, what was your favorite thing? And one of the first top 3 that they said is not having my phone. And I'm like, it's sad that it can't continue to do that. And, that they can detox. But I think I probably should have been better about taking the phones away or restricting it. And people that I work with, they know that I'm challenged on technology, and I have tried to take courses to learn how to restrict their time and all that stuff. But they're so much smarter than I am with technology. All kids are, they can get around stuff.
Yeah. The good news is they have access to a lot of information if they want to use it appropriately. And the bad news is, if you're on all the time, you're just being inundated with everything. And, I don't think the human body was designed, for that. And to your point earlier, in reference to the low hormone levels and what have you, I know we've talked a lot about in these podcasts about, hormone disruptors and plastics, for example, bottled water, PVC piping, the Roundup, the glyphosate, and the weed killer and plants and crops that we eat, and the processed foods, and so on and so forth. And I'm just wondering, on top of all of that, you're on this phone, and it's obviously it's powered by batteries, and it's charged, and it's there's radiation and what have you. And just, I know there's going to be studies coming out in the future, but you just wonder if that's also, compounding the problem as well.
Yeah, I think it is.
So, all right. So then you're a good listener. You want to hear everybody's story, and you're going to take time to meet with the patients and understand what motivated them to come in, and hopefully through the process at Optimal Bio, you'll be able to treat them appropriately, and they'll be happier being on the treatment. That's all well and good on a professional side. So from a personal standpoint, what do you like to do for fun?
One of the reasons I moved to Greenville is just so much to do outdoors. So I'm typically, I've become more of a hiker since I've moved here. There's beautiful hikes around here, and I love waterfalls. So usually on the weekends I'm hiking. I am part of a running group here, and so we're training for the Sphinx Half Marathon here that's in October. So I run with them on the weekends and a couple of nights during the week. And I like to do yoga and swim laps. So that's pretty much what I do in my free time. I'm trying to learn to garden and not kill anything. That's been kind of my new little hobby, and hummingbird feeders.
So for you, what's more fun, going back and forth, looking at that black line in a pool, or running up mountains, training for a half marathon?
Training for a half marathon is not fun, especially in this heat. But when I moved here, I had actually stopped running, and I was more doing yoga and swimming. But I thought, okay, I don't know anybody here. So I looked for, groups to join so I can meet people. So I do enjoy the running with these girls and the socialization part of it too. And I'm kind of goal oriented. So anything physical, I have to sign up for something to motivate me pretty much to stick to a routine, or be disciplined enough to run. But I've enjoyed the hikes a lot here. So right now I'd say I'd prefer hiking over running.
Yeah, I'm swimming this summer and I don't like it. So it's whether you have headphones in or not, it's just a boring experience for me. So talk to us a little bit about your wellness routine and your health routine, nutrition, diet. Obviously you like to exercise. So if we looked at a typical week, are you a 5-day-a-week exercise person, 3-day a week? And what do you do to reduce stress in between? Kind of walk us through your week.
So I will typically do my long runs on the weekend. And then I run about 3 days a week. And then I go to the Y here. So, and then the other days, I try to at least get 4 days in. It stresses me out if I say I'm going to do more than that. So I'll either go and swim my laps or go to yoga is typically what I do. And diet, I try to eat pretty healthy. My weakness is Mexican. Unfortunately, there's not a Mexican restaurant by my house like there was in Birmingham. I think I've shed some pounds because of that. My weakness is chips and salsa and guacamole.
Well, you're human. So are you, a 3 meal a day type of person?
So usually I like my coffee in the morning, and then if I eat breakfast, it'll be on the weekends, but during the week, I usually will wait till about 11, and I'm terrible with swallowing pills. So I put all my supplements in my Greek yogurt and eat that around 11, and then lunch anywhere between 12 and 1. And then I cook at home most of the time. If I go out to dinner, it's usually, one night on the weekend. We have great restaurants here. So it's sad that I don't go downtown more often, but I tend to be more of a homebody and cook at home.
What is your favorite dish?
I like fish. It's easy. I love my air fryer. So I love the little parchment paper pockets, and throw some fish or chicken in there and the red peppers and something simple like that. Anything easy. But I eat more fish than I do anything else.
Poor you. That air fryer that's a pretty cool piece of equipment. Yeah, we bought one a few years ago, and makes some good stuff. I can't agree with you on the whole fish thing, though. I do like fish to some extent, but I never dream about it. It's not, in my top 5. But sometimes it's good if it's cooked right. It's just that I'd rather have a piece of steak or chicken or something else before the old fish.
Yeah, I like chicken, and I do like steak. I just have not mastered. I either overcook it or undercook it. I probably would eat it more if I knew how to cook it right or grill it right.
And what are some of your stress reducers besides working out?
I try when I'm drinking my coffee in the morning. So I get my coffee, I walk my dog, and then she sits on the porch with me. I'll try to read my devotion every day, just to kind of get my day started. I'm not always good at it every day, but I do try that. And yoga helps. I wish that I did it more, but I'm more of a cardio person. And but yoga would be my exercise part or meditation part. And then I try to read my devotion to kind of get my day started right and focused.
Good deal. This is kind of the time of the podcast where we're going to conclude. And we always ask our guests to give the audience 5 takeaways, life experiences you've had, words of advice that, you think would be helpful for others. So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to give me 5.
I guess nutrition, like I constantly tell my girls, you are what you eat. And, when you're in your 20s and 30s and you don't have to fight your metabolism, it's hard for them to think that. It was hard for me too, because I exercised all the time, and it's kind of like, I can eat what I want to. And so I would just say, start early with kind of being disciplined with your nutrition. Exercise, even I've got a friend that hates to exercise. She's a diabetic, and she's, I'm trying to get her out there, but so I know it's not for everyone, but just going for a walk, 20, 30 minutes, start off several days a week and kind of build up. I think meditation is good, just to have time to sit and clear your mind and breathe. Sleep, definitely. I will say I always have had sleep issues until I started getting my pellets, and I sleep through the night, and it's wonderful. If anything, that's been my favorite thing with the pellets is I sleep through the night. And then my last would be travel. Get a different perspective on other people's lives and other places. I try to travel any chance I get, whether it be local or out of the country.
So what's the favorite place you've ever been to?
I've got 2. So I loved Costa Rica. It was just very relaxing. It wasn't real touristy. I hate to Christmas shop. And so when my kids got a little bit older, every other Christmas we take a trip. And that was, it was just the 3 of us. And it was just relaxing and, just kind of going out in the rainforest and the swamps or the jungle. I did like that. And then my other one was for my 50th, I wanted to bike through Italy, and the people that I biked with in Birmingham. We went to Italy and did a week of cycling, and it was nice. It wasn't in the touristy part of Italy, which I would like to go back and see that part, but it was more in the countryside. And it was just beautiful, the scenery, and just the whole experience.
When you bike through Italy, did you use a tour company?
We stayed at a bike hotel, and you could either bring your own bike or you could use a bike through them, and their bike was much nicer than mine. So, but it was great. It was a bike hotel. There was like 40 of us from Birmingham that went, and they do this trip every Memorial weekend, and it's gotten so big that they do Labor Day weekend as well. And it's in Riccione. So every day you would just do a different part. And the hotel would, we would get up early in the morning, get our bikes together, and they would, have this big spread of food. And then 9 o'clock, we would bike 40, 50 miles, come back around 2, eat lunch, sit by the pool, and, then go to dinner and just kind of do it all over again.
Sounds great. We've taken some trips, and we use a company called Backroads, and they started out as a bike. Yeah. And same thing. I mean, all bike related things, but you're not staying in one spot. You're basically going through a region. And we've loved it. So, but yours sounds really interesting as well. So I might have to look into that.
Did you ever do Moab or Mount Zion with them?
We did. We did the North Rim of the Grand Canyon, Mount Zion, and Bryce all at the same time.
That's my bucket list next summer.
I highly recommend it. They did a great job if you want to go through back roads, but you certainly could do it on your own as well. But we camped too with them. So, you bike during the day, then you camped, and other campsites were, it's fake. I mean, it's kind of camping, but it's, glamping in a way. But it's, their locations are unbelievable. I mean, you're close to everything.
Yeah.
So, well, that could be another podcast. We could talk about travel someday. Well, as always, it's been great to know a little bit about you, and looking forward to talking to you in the future, and good luck with you in Greenville. And for those out there listening, come visit Tanya at some point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
This has been a production of Optimal Bio. Optimal Bio is CEO Tyler Brannon, podcast host and partner Jim Baker, medical director Greg Brannon, production assistance by Core Media, Beth Grabencourt, administrator, Kevin Duthu, executive producer. The podcast can be found on our website, optimalbio.com, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Our theme song is Sunwave by Paradiso, provided by Epidemic Sound.